Natural Resources Committee to order. Do we have a roll call, please?
Carroll.
Here.
McKee.
Here.
Hendricks. Here. Gill.
Here.
Woodhouse.
Here.
Fleming. And Brookins. Here. You have 6 of 7 present.
Hey, and verification of open meeting law compliance.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we use properly notice.
Awesome. Okay, need a motion for approval of agenda, but I would like to see if we can move the zoning petitions up right after public comments so that these folks don't have to sit through a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily need to. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. And now public comment. Public comment.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Oh, I skipped one. Sorry. Approval of minutes.
This is Julie. I'm online.
Carter.
Julie's online.
Julie joined. Fleming.
Right.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. A second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, now a public comment.
This is Julie. I just wanted to mention that I'm online.
That was Julie?
Yep.
Oh, okay. good.
I have you marked as present, Julie.
Okay.
So we're all here.
Just want to make sure you knew I was online. Okay.
All right, so zoning petitions. Let's do Whipper first, Schmitz.
So we have Ray Schmitz to rezone 3.33 acres of ag forestry to residential 1. And that has been surveyed off. And the CSM has been reviewed.
I received a letter for this, that's why I'm here.
Okay,
300 feet within from the property. The house don't bother me. I'm not against him building the house. I just want to know, there's 20 acres, if that's going to be zoned residential, and if they're going to be able to chop that up in 2-acre parcels after you zone it residential.
well,
Right now, they're only rezoning, the only things we rezone is that one that Ray is.
But the letter I got says 20 acres will be zoned residential.
Which should be rezoned ag residential.
So does that mean they can't build houses on it?
1.
One house on ag residential.
Just his house?
Right now it's zoned ag forestry. Correct? Or is it, what is it? Yeah.
Do you want to see this?
I have,
So
but
it's,
there's 20 acres left.
right. In reality, that needs to be rezoned to ag residential.
Okay. So if it's ag residential, can they relatives put 5 more houses in it? 20?
Only if it goes through the rezoning process to zone them residential.
Okay. The reason I'm bringing it up is because if that slides, I should be able to do that with my property. Because when I bought mine, there was an ordinance, you had to own 35 acres before you could chop this up. I'm sure some of the old people here. We had that Ernstmeyer deal up Goats Path. He had 80 acres. He tried to chop it up and put 40 houses in there. They had like 100 people in here because they all had to buy 35 acres because of the ordinance. So I'm just, if the ordinance is there anymore, if it's gone, or
make sure I understand it. If it's zoned ag res, you can only build one house.
Correct.
So this remaining 20 some acres, as it's currently zoned, could only add one more house.
It's ag forestry or ag residential. Right now, it's still ag forestry.
Right.
Technically, that needs to be rezoned ag residential.
Right, but you're still only allowed one house on ag res, right? Does that answer your question?
on the 20 acres.
Right.
Yeah,
That answers the question.
Okay.
Theoretically, if you chop it up in 2, you could put 8 houses there.
That
Because
would be-
isn't Richland Township 2 acres?
Well, right, but that would be another rezoning request at some future date.
Right, I just want to know ahead of time here where this is headed. Because if you look at the driveway, it could easily be a subdivision.
Help out on this. Rowan Whipperford is my grandson. And I think this second request for rezoning of the 20+ acres, he wants to keep that in ag forestry. This request for it going to ag residential was not his request. It erroneously got put in here. So he wants to keep it in the managed forest program. So that should, you're Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Yes. So that should help you on your concern. That he wants to keep it as is and not develop any further.
And that's one thing with ag residential, it's just saying it could be agriculture, it could be residential, but because it's less than 35 acres, technically it's supposed to be rezoned ag residential.
Yes. And
And that's something it's further down on the agenda that we're gonna be talking about. And we've been talking with Corp Council that we need to, when things like this come up, how do we handle it? What's the best way to handle it? If we leave it ag where it's zoned right now, it's non-conforming. And if he comes to build a house, then we'd have to have it rezoned.
I did go to the DNR office and they said as long as it's more than 20 acres, he can still participate in the managed forest
Yep.
program. And that's what he intends to do.
Yep, and the zoning won't affect that unless they,
Correct. That's right.
so,
I
So
think
if you want to stick around, on our agenda later is discussion to make sure that our ordinance has currently written matches with what's been the practice in the past, as far as we go below 35 acres. So we are going to be talking about that some more, but right now, the way they describe it is how we do it. Yeah. Are you good then?
That's fine.
Okay.
Just wanted to put it on record.
Yep. Okay, so we need to go, need to finish up the Whipperworth Schmidt's ordinance request. Any more questions or comments from the committee? No. All right, well,
yeah, it's not on the agenda.
if not, then we need a motion to approve that sort of request.
So I'll say,
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the request, say aye.
all right,
Any opposed? Okay, request is passed. All right, our next one, Town of Rockbridge.
So we have Greg Nedland, rezoning 10.67 acres from ag forestry to ag residential. This is a town zoned township. So it is based on the Rockbridge zoning ordinance.
Wouldn't hurt to explain again to the new members the which areas are zoned themselves and not under county zoning.
Sure. So Rockbridge and Ithaca are town zoned. They have their own ordinances for zoning. And then Sylvan and Bloom are not zoned at all. So we just permit sanitary permits and new homes, residential homes, building permits, and addresses.
So this is a bit of a formality, just so it's,
So it comes through here because there's a
Yeah, and we,
notification basically.
and the county has to approve it. We can't, if the township approves it, Mr. Banker, no, I'm sorry, Scott, is here, but we cannot, like, Richland County cannot deny it. If they approve it, we have to say, we have to, okay, it's a formality
So
type thing.
Can I speak?
So everybody get out your rubber stamp.
He would like to comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Right, well, the county ultimately, when a town goes to town zoning, it has to pass a referendum, first of all, with the people in that township. And that's what we went through. Plus, we were doing the land use plan with all the rest of our partners here in the county. 2006, in December, we zoned, and the county has to find, see, when you have to present your ordinance to the county for final approval, just like you do today for this final stamp of approval on this rezoning. So ultimately, the county still always has if you would want to kick it back, you still could do that. You know what I'm saying? If there's something that you want to question or you like, you can always kick it back. But we've been zoned since 2006, and it passed the county board at that time. It's been working well for us. So this, if you want to know a little bit about this rezoning at all, I can tell you, or if you've got enough information, I'm fine.
It looks straightforward to me. If you have any questions on it. All right. Motion to approve then. Someone make a motion to approve. So Mark. And Elaine. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, all right, got that one.
Another question.
Yeah,
When does this go before the county board then? The next,
What's the date on
is it the next meeting?
20th.
Yeah,
What's
August
the
20th.
date on that one?
August 20th.
August 20th. Do you prefer to have a representative there, or it doesn't matter? We haven't been attending those, but we can always
In my
send some.
opinion, this is pretty straightforward. I don't think you need to come.
Okay, well, thank you for serving me this morning, and appreciate all of you. So with that, am I free to
Yeah.
go on my other?
You guys can go. You guys, once leave can leave. It's up to us.
Thank the zoning officer for working with you on this. Thank you.
Okay, reports.
Well, the first thing I want to say is Katrina took her test for pouts in July. I don't know if she heard it yet, has heard yet if she passed or not. Tomorrow I take both parts, tomorrow morning I take both parts of the certified soil testers test. And then she takes it on Wednesday. So hopefully one of us passes. I'm not counting at all, but it'd be nice if one of us would pass. Yeah. So, and you wanna go, Katrina?
I've been working closely with Jeff Brubaker from the state on the sanitary permits and inspections, just to kind of have a better idea of techniques and what I should be looking for, what they look for, so forth. He went out on an inspection with me a couple weeks ago, and I did one soil evaluation with Ken Renish 2 weeks ago, I believe, just to see how they do that, get more hands-on information. And then as of right now, we're at 107 total land use permits. There was 24 in July, and then 34 total sanitary permits, and we have 4 waiting for Matt's signature. So that's where we're at.
Like you said, first permits.
Land use permits, 107 is where we're at right now.
This was technically quote unquote the building permits.
Could I ask where most of these are located?
I think they're kind of all over. I think,
Scattered everywhere?
yeah, it wasn't really any specific spot that stood out.
One thing Katrina and I have been talking about in the past, the zoning person, sanitary person has not been going out on a lot of the inspection parts. And we've kind of talked that we feel we should go back to that, back to going out, making sure things are, and Jeff knows he he's a licensed master plumber, so he understands. Most of the people are no problem, but we just kind of want to make sure things are going the way they should be. Being we're all new, we want to make sure, and I think it keeps people on their toes a little bit, that they're not cutting corners. You know, septic's something you don't want to cut corners on.
I think there was like 20 that nobody went on before I got hired to go on them. I can tell you, things got pretty sloppy.
Yeah, so we want to stop. We want to make it, so we've kind of talked and we said, it's just, even if we're not certified yet, just going out and looking at them and getting the things and then coming back and talking to Matt, saying, this is what we found, you know. I think that's important. So that's what we've kind of talked about.
So what would cutting corners or sloppy look like? What does that mean?
Well, it means no chains and locks on the lids. The yard's a mess. The caps aren't put on properly. And somebody's got to put grass seed on it. Now, it could be the homeowner, it could be the plumber, but somebody's got to do it. And lots of times that gets left out. The chains and locks, is a big deal. I must have went back on 5. There's no chains and locks on the lids. I mean, that's a liability just waiting to happen. You get 2 kids drag a lid off, somebody falls in a septic tank. Yeah. And I've noticed it a lot. You don't have control over this. Like pumpers go when they cut the chain. It's cut. Never gets locked back up.
I know, like Katrina went on one, something, certain types of systems, they have to plow and rake. So there was a question on one of them, wasn't there?
Yeah, he admitted that he didn't fully plow, just for working around reasons. But I just would like
I
to
mean, you
see.
can't be there for everything.
No.
I mean, it's just that once you aren't there and they know the sheriff isn't gonna show up, things get sloppy.
So they know what the regulations are. And
Yeah.
they're ignoring them.
Yeah.
They.
Because they know nobody's coming.
And that's where we wanna know when things are going in, so nothing else. Sure, I could pop in and say, oh, well, you know,
Sure. When are you gonna seed this with grass?
yeah,
Kind of.
yeah. So I guess that's kind of why we wanna kind of be there for the inspections, just because even the soils investigations, we'd like to be on, making sure that somebody's not saying something that's not true.
Right. And the basic thing is like making sure that the filter gets put in the septic tank. I've been on them where
Now we have to have, right?
Well, yeah, because you can only have certain size particles go out into the septic, other than plug everything, so.
There's a lot of little things, but it's basic stuff that should be done.
Are these things the kind of things where one visit could take care of it, or are we talking?
Well,
It depends. It depends, you know, if they put it in parts.
usually one case will take care of it. It's just that sometimes if they know you're not coming,
Right.
it's the same people. It's not, there's some really good ones out there, and I'm really impressed with some because I never went on their work before. So I was doing my own work.
Yeah, he kind of helped out between the time Mike was gone and before Matt started. Kind of,
But there was like 20 that I wasn't hired before.
But in general, it sounds like a good move.
Yeah.
yeah,
You need to.
Yeah.
It's basically policing the situation. But I would say the big thing is, and you know, it may take, I even told people, I said, well, I drive by here on other systems. I'm gonna come and check and see if it got grass seeded. You know, I put fear out there that I may return. They don't lots of times get it done right then because it could be raining, you know, it could be a lot of them. Or sometimes it's a brand new home and now you've got another company comes in and grass seeds the whole yard. So you gotta give them a little time.
Right.
But I've been on them where year later, nothing's been done. Stuff like that.
you know, so that's what we're looking at doing, just. The other next thing is I want to talk about is the county, that mobile tower project for the county. I signed, looked them over and signed all the permits for the ones that occurred in the county zoned areas. Forwarded the one to Minor Hill up here, took it to the city. The only one we're waiting on is the one at Keysville. They're asking for stuff to be rezoned, and so unfortunately that one may be delayed a little bit, but I think everybody else could go in. I've got the permit signed for all the rest of them.
Yep, and that one, Josh has talked with Todd Rumler, and, so I think they're getting a CSM on that they're expediting a CSM on it to try to get to a little quicker.
Yeah, and we may just put I think a township one on the next agenda ahead of time so that it can move through quicker.
So the ones you have signed, what was it you signed?
If they're mobile towers, the county are required to have a permit. Keep those going in. And this is for the ones, the 911 ones. And so we're just making,
Okay.
no, it's just, they're put in there so we make sure that we have the plans and know that they're going in, so if we ever get a question on it.
Yep.
So,
But there is one rezone that it will come through here again.
because it's in a township and they're requiring it to be rezoned, and that's up to the township. We can't deny, it's one of those things, from understanding, we can't deny the cell towers. It's state rule, but yeah. The other last thing, oh, there she is. The campers in Gotham, and I'll let,
Just that they're still there as of Thursday morning.
I can speak to that too as well. I talked to one of the parties, or the family members, and they are in the works of finishing all that up and expect it to be, everything to be done in about a month. So as far as the campers, they're gonna get them out as soon as they can. So they are not out yet, but will be shortly. There was a death in the family, the owner of the property died, and the family members are trying to go
Okay.
through all of that, so.
So you recommend we just kind of let it ride?
yeah, we could talk to it, but, because Mr. Wendell was wondering, had some questions about it. The letter been sent, we have no idea if my dad sent a letter or not about having them out August 1st, so this explains a little bit then too.
Okay.
I can think of the other thing is zoning, but we'll talk later. I can, the other two, right? The zone, yeah, I don't think there's anything else. And we go to the next one, my report. Actually, I'd like to introduce Corey Rogers. She's our conservation technician on the agronomic side of it. I'll let her talk a little bit about herself and what she's been up to.
So I may have spoke to some of you when I introduced myself when I first started, but I've been here about 6-7 months now. And I guess my main role with land conservation is managing the farmland preservation program. And Kathy and I both agreed that we kind of need to improve our, I guess, just the program in general. A big part of that is ensuring that our participants who are claiming the tax credit are in compliance with the state agriculture standards. It is just the rules of it, and I think we've been a little lax on keeping up with all of that. And so one of our main goals in trying to reach that goal is, amping up our compliance inspections per like DAT cap rules. We're supposed to be inspecting a quarter of our farms every year that are in the program. So with that, I've kind of started to set up that process. So I've divided our yearly compliance into like separating it by townships, and I'm going across the county, like west to east, just down the rows, and just seemed like a simple way of doing it. And that I've done a decent chunk of them for this this year, but got a little bit of a late start on it as I was still setting up kind of how I wanted to do it. But with this amping up in compliance inspections, we may see, a lot more compliance violations come up. With that, we will be issuing more notices of non-compliance. But as this is still like, we're phasing this process in, we still don't know exactly how we're doing it, so we will probably still be a little lax on everything as we still figure it out and are letting our producers know that we are amping this up. But that is just one thing, maybe some more notices of non-compliance. With that, if we find a problem, we will give producers an amount of time, probably like a year, depending on how big this issue could be. And then this is their like schedule of compliance that they're supposed to, get back into compliance within this little amount of time. And if we still see that there's a problem, we can then go forward with this notice of non-compliance. They can voluntarily sign this if they no longer want to be in the program. That just means they voluntarily agree to no longer claim the tax credit. Those voluntary signatures wouldn't have to come to committee, but if this is an actual problem and they want to maybe, how do I want to say? I don't know, have another review of it, that notice of non-compliance will come to committee and we'll talk it over, but I haven't been through that process yet, so I don't know exactly what it looks like.
It's been a long time ago, and then basically it's formality. If we find them in non-compliance, we've given them a chance to get back into compliance, then we bring them to the committee.
The appeal.
Yeah, it's kind of appeal, and then you guys would make the final decision, yes or no, and then the committee chair would sign and I would sign.
Reminds me of a question. Our revised nutrient management, or manures, what's the term?
Under storage ordinance.
Storage ordinance. How do you guys see that rolling out since will be changing? And do we need to have some kind of advertising or like?
Well, I think it'll be part of, and I was gonna get to that later. I talked to Corp Counsel, and I'm going to go through the one that's in the code of ordinances, which is the old one, and then put in the new stuff in and make those changes. Next meeting, I want to bring the new ordinance, because we kind of tabled it after the public hearing, because of the fee schedule, that'll be coming up, and so said just go ahead with it and add it in, but I'll bring it to the next meeting for your approval, final approval for the manure storage ordinance. And then that'll be incorporated as far as going to county board, it'll be all done at the same time as when the county does the code of ordinance approval. So, and then we'll put that in, then we'll get it out, we'll put it out as much as I can, maybe put a public, make sure it's on our website, make it sure, let them know it's on, let them know on the Facebook page, and then get it out to like the paper or whatever, or, it's kind of a basic changes in it is more getting them to update to the new technical standards, the manure storage ordinance.
Yep. Do we know when the fee schedule is gonna get?
We have, the fee schedule is ready.
Good.
The procurement policy is in draft form, ready to, we just have to go over it one more time with the attorney, and then it'll be ready to go in front of committee. So then they will roll out at the same time, because the fee schedule is an actual addendum. The procurement policy will be a living, breathing document that can be an ordinance or not. That is up for you all to decide. And then that way the fee schedule is just kind of like the committee assignment document, can be amended, can be changed, where the other will be a more stagnant document. So they will roll out at the same time. So we're within,
Getting close.
that we're like right there after months
And
months
so,
of work.
so like I said, that whole thing, we'll do it all.
Yep.
But I'll bring the actual ordinance to the committee for your final approval. And then I'll be putting it into the code of ordinance stuff.
That's a good question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So do you know how many people this manure ordinance would affect?
Anybody installing a new facility. And we get like,
So you don't like have a list, so there isn't.
we have a list of people that have gone through the process.
But it wouldn't, it's not like we could send out a mass mailing, like a letter.
It wouldn't do any good,
Right.
because they're already in compliance.
Right, it's just.
Just anybody new coming in.
Think creatively, like, okay, who else could we get it out to? But realistically, you don't know because it's new people.
It'd be new people, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like putting a new structure, that's when it comes into
Okay.
effect.
We also changed who it applies to in terms of a couple of other things, I thought.
Well, it would,
That's again, an unknown, we don't know who all that would apply to.
right. And we can't just send out a mass mailing.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it
what I'm
is,
saying, there needs to be some way to get the word out.
Well, we can do a press release.
Yeah.
yeah,
We can do a press release, we put it on the website, we get it on the Facebook page.
Do what we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Okay.
and as people come in and say, hey, I want to put a manure storage thing in. And things like with Corey going out doing the farmland preservation things, that's the farmland preservation program, that's sometimes what people come in and ask about. And that's when the compliance thing comes into effect too, with the manure storage ordinance. If they're mismanaging things, it may be, it's something with DNR that says, hey, somebody's manure storage unit's overflowing. That's when the manure storage ordinance would come in effect. Corey's out doing some of her spot checks and she notices something's not working right. In the manure storage unit, that's when it would come into effect.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
could we also put it on the radio as well? Staff, maybe like the press release, do they
It goes to-
typically,
Yeah.
it goes to them anyway?
Yep.
Okay.
it does.
Yeah, my question is, the compliance or non-compliance, is there a size farm or is this anybody that's,
Well, what we're looking at now, our current ordinance says 3,500 cubic feet or 30-day storage, whichever is smaller. Well, we've got some places going in, a lot of them are these little poultry farms, these big poultry shed things. They're under, the actual storage is less than 3,500 cubic feet, less than 30 days storage. And they're putting under storage underneath these buildings for just temporary, they're in there for like a couple weeks and they clean it out, whatever. And I'm concerned, and some other counties have gone to, there is no minimum limit. So if you're putting in a storage, it needs to be put in no matter what size, it needs to meet standards.
And that's what our revised one says too, no lower limit.
okay.
And it's a lot of it, we've got along the river there, and then a couple other places, we've got these huge looking buildings going in, and I have no authority to bring them, make sure it's been put in correctly. And a lot of that is having manure storage incorrectly prevents groundwater pollution and surface water pollution. To me, that's the two biggest things. And making sure the manure is being put on the land correctly. It's not just somebody's not over-applying manure somewhere, so.
A lot of the area down there is kind of sandy, so.
I've heard we had problems with some of that water quality in that area too.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we've kind of gone to that. Corey's also been working on prep.
Yeah, the perpetual easements, at least anyways, perpetual crep easements, there's a,
CREP is Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program.
and so those were originally, in 15-year CRP contracts, but once those expired and they had signed it into a perpetual crep easement, that no longer is in like federal USDA NRCS, I guess, hands. It goes to county and DATCAP, kind of managing these easements, keeping track of, making sure people are in compliance with what their, I guess, conservation plan stated, and those are all perpetual, which means they're in place forever. And a lot of times these are getting, selling new landowners who didn't know that these were originally signed into conservation easements. And we have been finding a couple of them where these new landowners have put them back into crops and all that. So that process of going out and monitoring them, I've been going on with an intern from DACAP, which I actually was in her position last summer, so I know exactly what she's doing, know the whole process. She's been coming out to Richland County a couple days, and we're going to these easements, resetting the boundaries, with is like an underground like rebar or magnet, and then a post with a crep sign on it. Those are to reset the boundaries, and then also just taking account of what vegetation is there, and then DACAP then sends out a letter letting them know if they're in compliance. If there's maybe some invasive brush there, that needs to be taken care of, or if there's a big problem, then they're in violation. I guess we're kind of there to help them get back into compliance. Questions if they need to reseed with the conservation cover, what exactly that all needs. But that's another thing I've been doing. Next week, me and Kathy are meeting with 2 team members for the EW Extension Nutrient and Pest Management team. We are interested in setting up a nutrient management farmer education course, which goes back to our big part of our farmland preservation compliance. If people are spreading any nutrients, whether it's, synthetic fertilizers or manure, they are supposed to have a nutrient management plan on that land. And that is a requirement for farmland preservation participation. And that's a big thing that we haven't seen. We have, a lot of people who are in the program and haven't been submitting nutrient management plans. A lot of it because they just don't know that that is a requirement. So we are hoping to set up a course where to, incentivize producers to do nutrient management plan, because they can write their own. If they take this course, they can write their own instead of going to pay a planner to write their plan. And hopefully we're meeting on next Monday to talk about the logistics of this and hopefully get it set up, and hopefully we can let producers know, because then we can amp up our compliance for farmland preservation. So that is another thing that hopefully we get. I know it's been done in the past. I just haven't been around for that and don't know how it all works. So hopefully we can get it set up and have it be an annual thing, so then they're updating their plans every year. But I guess we'll see what participation is like, and yeah.
Do we have a number that we know when you are in the program in Richland County?
It's just it's tricky because we have a database of all the landowner names, and they all have certificate of compliance numbers. I don't know the totals of that, but I do know it's a little tricky because some people are the same landowners, but technically have different entity names. So we have them in the database multiple times, and that makes it tricky to know actual numbers. But
The classic example, someone will have, we'll take Mark, you have it as Mark Gill as one owner, and then you maybe have Mark A. Gill on the property tax. When the deed goes through, it's got Mark A. Gill, and then it may be Mark and your wife's name, and then Mark and your wife's name and the middle initial. And the state requires that the tax bills and the certificates of compliance match exactly. So you may have the one owner, but it may be 4 different certificates. So that's what she's talking about, tricky part. That's the tricky part. Or it may be like, and then, I'll take like Oakwood Fruit Farm. They're an entity and they own land, but some of the members own land too, and they farm it all as one. So it's like, say, 5 different certificates, but it's kind of one entity because, one person takes care of the whole thing. So that's the tricky part. It's the name thing more than anything.
I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how much to get our arms around this.
Well, there's like about 400 certificates of compliance, but there's how it's broken down is.
I like what I'm hearing with this amping up. That's good.
yeah.
But if I want to, I'm not familiar with the CRE.
Mhm.
Where do I go to look at that?
Well, I guess
You send me a link.
yeah. And it's essentially the same thing. It just is maybe called enhancement because it's more payment from the state, where CRP is federal money.
Only.
And then the CREP is the state program that gives more cost share dollars and stuff.
But it kicks in after the initial
No,
At least the perpetual,
perpetual,
that's just forever, but there can be 15 years CREP as well.
Oh,
there's the state, the federal contract and the state contract. And the state contract need to be 15 years for perpetual. The federal is only 15 years.
okay.
So if they go into perpetual, after the first 15 years, they get federal payments. They don't get any more federal payments, they can't re-enroll it, so it's just the perpetual easement.
Okay.
The only other thing I've got left to talk about, well, two things. Saturday, we're hosting, and we haven't got anybody sign up, it's called Snapshot Day. We'll be meeting at 8:30, if anybody's interested, meeting at the community, this park shelter here at the community, the old community center. And basically what we're going to be doing is meeting and talk about invasive species, aquatic invasive species, and what we're going to be, some stuff we're looking for, and we're going to go up to the DNR property afterwards, spend an hour or two up on where the kayak landing is, and kind of going along the stream, looking in the stream for aquatic invasive species, and coming back and seeing if we found anything. So it's like, I've got like 8:30 to 12:30 scheduled. If anybody's interested, it's on our Facebook page. There's a link you can go to sign up to go do that. And we haven't anybody sign up. I've been promoting it. I've sent it. Just haven't anybody sign up yet. So if anybody's interested, otherwise it may be just some staff going out doing it, but it'd be nice to have some others go out. The other thing, and Julie, yours is over by your name. I gave you two things. This is every year, the counties take turns in the southern area to host a tour, go looking at different things. So it's going to be in Rock County in September. Unfortunately, it's during the fair, so we're kind of unavailable, but if you're interested, you can sign up for it. Get to meet like land conservation committee members from all over from the southern area to get to know other people. The other thing I gave is a booklet, and it's written up by the Wisconsin Land and Water Association. It just tells a little bit about the land conservation programs and what's entailed, so. And things for you to know as a committee member.
So if someone's not here today, just put it in their mailbox.
Yeah, I'll put Craig's in his mailbox, so yours will be there, Craig.
He nodded.
Hmm?
He nodded.
All right. I think that's all we've got. Wait, are you extension?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. You have an extension.
So I'm Anastasia Firth. I'm pretty new to Extension, about a month in so far. I am the Regional Crops and Soils Educator for Richland, Sauk, and Juneau counties. My home base is Sauk, but I do bop around to the different counties, and I'm here as a resource, so I'm hoping to get some good programs going and learn a lot more about Richland County. So one of the topics that came up was the nutrient management plans. So be happy to help with those if you need it.
Do you have like regular hours or a schedule or something?
I usually work 7:30 to 4. I can give a business card if you're interested. Like I said, I'm usually in Sauk County in Baraboo. That's my home office, but I'll be working here today. So.
So who's doing that prior to you?
I don't think you had a crops and soils person.
Carolyn, Heidi.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
I think she was more livestock, possibly. But Beth, I don't know how to say your last name, is the livestock person, but I'm new for crops and soils, so.
I was just wondering if you'd been given any help to.
Nope.
That's what I
Nothing.
thought.
So I'm figuring it out as I go.
Okay. I wish you will. All right, so that's it for extension. Then I know that he said he couldn't be here this month. And didn't really have
Oh,
any pressing things.
yeah, he's on vacation.
Let's see what else. Okay, so I think we're ready for the short-term rental ordinance.
I made the changes you talked about, Steve. I went through and looked at it. I don't know if anybody else saw anything that they thought needed to be changed.
I saw a few things, kind of minor, but on the first page, it's got the Natural Resource Standing Committee as a header. Natural is spelled wrong. But also under the license, the 2-year license, it says that the beginning April 1st and ending June 30th shall expire on June 20th, 24. We're past that now, so I'm assuming that wants to be changed. So, and obviously there's, you know, the headings and stuff, we have to do all those as we get to the final stage of it.
Right, then that'll be something that they'll do with the code of ordinance.
So Kathy, the markups I gave you where there were still little references about Mr. Wendell. Did you confirm he'd look things over?
No, I think what we need to do is just send it to him again and make sure.
Okay.
So I think just take out the 24 and that one and just 2 years later, on June 30th, 2 years later. And Natural Resources Committee, I can change those.
Yeah, if it says 2 years later, then you don't have to worry about
Right.
having a year in there.
Right,
Just-
so I'll take that out.
And then tell Mr. Wendell this is our final.
Right. I think so. And then they can do it into the code of ordinance.
The only question I had on this still, kind of like we talked about the nutrient management, is whether we need to have another chance for the public to be aware of this.
Well,
It's kind of a new kind of potentially wide impact the ordinance.
well, I think the nutrient management plan, the winter storage, I've not changed anything since we had the public hearing. It's
Right.
just more waiting, we were waiting.
Yeah. But for this one, I'm wondering if we should have.
And we still can. I mean, like you guys, I just wanted you guys to have one last
Right.
kick down the road and then make any changes and then get it to Mr. Wendell and then do a little public hearing at another committee meeting.
Right. So we do a public hearing before it goes to the board. Fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One of the things too, is we needed to kind of talk about is the agent part, because we kind of
Oh,
worked on the ordinance. And then we kind of put it on hold because we wanted to get more information about the agent and how that would affect things and how would that affect our ordinance too. So just how all of it would work together. So I think if we're going to do a public forum at some point or Q&A, we would want to also know that agent piece, if that's the route we're going to go. Because wouldn't that the public is going to have questions about that as well.
Well, how about I make the changes and then unless there's something else, then I can send it to Mr. Wendell. And then you guys can decide at the August meeting how we want to go with the other part of it or what you want to do.
Do we have an agent that can come and see us at our meeting?
Well, as I recall, the agent thing was more of does our county want to take on that role, which really ends up adding staff for Candace. So it's almost more of either your decision or a joint decision or whether it makes sense. My quick read on it was that I don't think we're quite ready for that.
And I think we could do an ordinance and then eventually go to an agent part of it.
Yeah. They're kind of separate.
Yeah, I think we kind of put it on hold when we were doing it, just because we weren't sure which way we were going to go and how are we going to inform the public. And we were, obviously this wasn't finalized and it's just, that's kind of why it got on hold, I think, to begin with.
So I guess my question would be, who is going to enforce the ordinance then? Is it going to fall to the zoning staff to enforce this ordinance?
The ordinance part, yes.
Yes.
the-
Okay,
That's why it says zoning department. And then.
right, and I did see that, I just didn't know capacity wise, do we think we have the staff to do it? I mean, I don't think it's gonna, they're gonna come flooding in or anything,
No.
but I just wanna make sure.
And I think this is gonna be it's one of those things that's gonna take a while to get everybody.
Sure.
Which is why I think we were talking about the agent part with it, because the agent then would be taking care of all of that piece versus the zoning
And
part.
that could be inspections, whatever that the charge would go maybe towards that agent's.
But then I
Salary.
suppose as we get into this and we see what that volume looks like, then explore, does it make sense?
Yes.
Do we have the?
That's my
volume?
opinion.
Do we have the level? Okay, so then we work that direction based on what we're finding and what we see as the need as we start seeing the trickle down.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
separate step.
Because we'll have records, we'll have documentation,
Yeah.
and we'll have to just see, kind of step into it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and I think some of that too is because at the time we weren't fully staffed or anything either, and we felt this is gonna be putting a burden on that whole
Right.
department, who was a one-person department at the time, pretty much.
But now look at.
Yeah, so now it's,
Uh-huh,
different.
uh-huh.
and that was one of the reasons too, it got put on hold. We needed to find out about that agent piece, because we couldn't work, obviously, short-staffed department.
And then remember the fee, that should probably be put in the fee schedule. I just thought of that.
Yeah, and that was the other part of
Oh,
it too, is
yeah,
the fee
you
schedule.
can have that, Larry still has it, so
Yeah.
whatever you
I don't
have
remember what
there,
you guys were talking about for the,
it's
did
in
it,
here,
let me take, oh, that's the wrong ordinance.
200. Imprisonment, I just saw that.
Yeah.
Or put that on.
That one. Just a little bit
200.
there.
52 is the
250 to more than 750, that's a penalty.
I think it got, oh, it's still in here.
But I remember seeing it.
Fees, it just says that it doesn't have the amount in it.
I think because we were still debating on,
I mean, we could always put in like, say, $200 or whatever. Or like, I think there was like $100 a year or something like that.
Well, I mean, we can add that in,
yeah,
you know, that's an easy one to add into that piece.
Well, I thought we were still gonna just reference the fee table.
Right, that's what we're gonna do. That's what it says in there, but we have to have the money to,
Something.
I have to
on
put,
the table.
gotta put it on the fee table. I don't have that in the fee schedule.
Pick one, I don't care.
Yep. We'll figure it out.
Discuss it.
Yeah.
$1 million.
Are we good with that then for now? STR discussion?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, now we're on to item 11.
It's the zoning ordinance. That's what,
Want to give the background on that or? you-
well, she's put together some, we've found some, between the three of us, I, Jen, and Katrina, more Jen and Katrina found some really weird things that were, and I'll let you talk about some of them. You're dealing with them more than me.
I'd say the main, sorry. I would say the main one is, parcels less than 35 acres, even less than 5 acres that are still egg forestry. Because they were grandfathered in. I think that's the biggest issue right now is what should we be doing with those? We found in the old employee file what looks to be what they were basing it off of, how they were running things.
It's on your iPads.
So
It's like page, I can't tell you what page it is, page 99. Or, well, but it's, there, in the iPads under the folder, there should be, it's got something listed there.
otherwise I have them all. If anyone needs any. So it just looks like this is what they were going off to do that. And then in the ordinance, we do have a non-conforming use section.
Page that on.
55.
What's that?
55 in the ordinance.
Pull up page 55. Oh, you mean
It's attached.
ordinance.
And we did talk to Mr. Wendell he was in one day about the trailer house thing and or the camper thing and okay, I got a question for you. How are we gonna handle these weird things as they come up? I mean, she's got one, I don't know if it's in the folder here, it's in the folder, but there's one where the person actually, there's a parcel, it's all zoned ag forestry, but inside that parcel is a part that's zoned residential. With no other, it's not associated with it, it's, there's, like I said, she's had a 0.8 acre piece zoned ag forestry. And so we did talk to him about some of that, Mr. Mandel, and he said, well, once the code of ordinances are passed, then there'll be a resolution that'll say, as of this date, this is what it's gonna be, and there is no grandfathering in. So then we'll bring, as they come in for building permits, sanitary permits, whatever, then we're going to ask them to come to have it rezoned. And we've also talked about having a different fee. They don't have to be surveyed. Then we would just charge them less thing and have to go through, because there's nothing has to be done really except going to the committee. Am I right, Katrina, is that we talked about?
Yeah, and it's just a simple fix, more on like the GIS side.
So here's my question. Some of these, who knows how they happened? They are what they are, but my question is, when you look at this example here of how that some of them got created, it's kind of like it became practice to, if there was a 35 acre parcel and some got partitioned off for ag res to build a house, fine. But then the issue that now the remaining parcels less than 35 was, part of this was okay.
It was left that like sort of like today.
Right, like that. So my question that we need to decide is, are we going to keep doing that and creating more parcels that aren't usually for the 35 acres, or are we gonna saw it off and not do that anymore?
And that's one of the issues we want to put into the code. But the one thing we've talked about, okay, we'll look at it, it says the picture with example 4. And it's got farm A and farm B. Say this is all owned by farm A. And farm A sells off 5 acres to sells off 8 acres to somebody else. The rest of it is still owned by the same entity. We rezone that one parcel, or as long as it stays owned by the same ownership, we don't need to rezone it. Or do we rezone it ag forest, ag residential?
That's the question. I don't know that we have to decide at this.
No.
But we need to think about it.
And one of the things we talked about is, as long as it's owned under the same ownership, not worry about rezoning, but as if they sell it off and somebody else comes in to do a building, whatever, then we rezone it at that time. But if it's farm A and farm B sells off 8 acres, Candace and, your farm A and your farm B, and Candace sells off 8 acres, well, then the rest of it should be rezoned at that time, because it's not connected to this, it's not the same owner.
Yeah. So the question is, if we do that, what triggers it? Just us remembering we have to?
No, it'd be when they come in for a sanitary permit, a floodplain permit, a zoning, a land use permit, a new address, that's when it would trigger to bring them in and.
But we need to look at, this brings us back, if you'll recall, when we looked at our economic development, when we had that economic development study, one of the things that they said was one of the barriers that we have to economic development is our zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
It's prohibitive. So now may be the time to have that bigger discussion of, let's take a look at our zoning ordinance from the ground up. Let's take a look at it. It may be the time to take a look at it and make these decisions, have these conversations. It's a big undertaking, but it may be the time to really take a peek at it ground up and make those decisions and have those conversations and reset those parameters on what do we want our zoning ordinance to really look
Right,
like.
and we don't want to repeal and recreate, because then any township that's covered by the zoning ordinance can bow out. Not necessarily we want that, but I think right now, she and I are gonna look at it and send it. We're gonna make some adjustments in it to take to the county board thing with the whole set of code ordinances. I talked to Mr. Window. Just little tweaks to clarify some things that are like, don't make sense, you know what I mean? One part says one thing, one part says another. But then I think we need to go through eventually and make bigger tweaks.
That's what I'm saying. I think this is the time to start that conversation line by line. Does this make sense? Does this work? You know, in the context of where we're at right now and these issues we're finding and the way that we want things to move forward, is this the way we want it to look?
Are you saying we have to read it? How many have actually read it? Come on.
The one thing that they did take out, I noticed when I was going through it Friday, going through all the zoning ordinances, all the ordinances for the zoning, was they did take out, and I never understood what's the difference between residential 1 and residential 2. I didn't see it, she noticed it, there's no difference in what they say. So they're getting rid of they took out residential 2, it's just residential 1. Which is, you know, it's something sounds simple, but it clarifies, okay, we shouldn't have 2 residential districts.
One thing we need to be careful to do this review is that, I mean, we do have some constraints based on state regulations and statutes, right?
And it's the parcel size for the,
Well, that's why we have to have the attorney.
Yeah.
yeah, and then, yeah. So like I said, she and I are, to get it through the code of ordinance, to get it passed, we're just tweaking some little things now, and then I think this winter is a good time to go through. You guys all look at it, see if you see some things that should be tweaked. If some things just don't, it's confusing for us to enforce it, am I correct? Katrina?
Yeah.
I think on residential 1 and 2, I think some of the difference isn't it depending on how many feet from the boundary or the property line that you have to have certain permits, and, because I thought I had just asked about getting a permit for something put on my property, and even like a shed, and it has to be so many feet, but if it's res 1, it's this, if it's res 2, it's different. Am I remembering incorrectly, or? I thought that was some of the difference between the two.
I'll look, well, Katrina could.
Here's my question, where she's looking is, what are some of the tax implications of how land is zoned, basically? Is it?
They're 2 separate things.
That's completely different.
Yep, we get the question all the time, and the zoning does not affect the taxes. That is the assessor decides what is taxed at. They make that determination. So I know we got yelled at, especially the one guy, the guy there, the guy in Willow, guy in Willow that went to everybody because his taxes went up like a lot because he took it out of managed forest program.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about the zoning, and it's like, no, and we had a lot of questions. Zoning is separate from the assessing. It's hard to get people to understand, our zoning does not affect what it's taxed at.
They don't consider the zoning when they make the assessment.
They do the use.
Yes, I could add one point on this whole list. If that remaining land should be rezoned to ag residential. If that's still in cropland though, they wouldn't be eligible for farmland preservation tax credit anymore if it's no longer. But, you know, I feel like they.
Well, that's why I was thinking about talk about the
contiguous.
they're contiguous owner, and it's contiguous ownership. That's different than, you know, if Steve owns all of it and he owns off part of it and sells 8 acres to Candace. But if he owns a 40 and Candace owns a 40, and then she sells off the 8 acres, then that really technically should be rezoned.
And if later that it is contingent by one, but then they sell that parcel, then that, again, then all of a sudden it's a new owner, even though it's still contiguous.
Right, and that would be,
Can I ask a question while you're looking? Did you figure out that property in Sextonville that was zoned 3 different ways?
Was that the one that,
It's like forestry, residential, and commercial. One,
Yeah.
another one.
yeah, that was one of the ones.
so
That's the one.
when we look through like the historical data on our,
Yeah, that was interesting.
I don't see anything making it have that zoning. So I went on a call with the MSA, the GIS contract, and we fixed it. So it no longer has half commercial on this and then residential leaking up in it. Because that didn't really make sense. So now it's just ag forestry. But and what I think is they should still have to get their parcels rezoned to residential.
And that's,
This discussion.
and that's what we were talking about, the whole bill too, is something like this, where it's an existing parcel, they're not changing the boundaries, it's just the wrong zoning for some reason.
Right.
We come to the committee, we don't have a lot to do with it, just come back to the committee and say, it should be zoned as, you know, the correct, and not spend $500.
It was, yeah, it was just improperly zoned to begin with, and it just needs to be corrected.
Yeah, somehow.
Just correct it.
Okay, residential 2, it says this district is intended to provide for high-quality, single-family, year-round residential development in existing villages and subdivisions in order to make it more reasonable for these developments when necessary, for lot area with yard requirements referred to R1. So it's the same thing.
But there isn't any
If you look-
restrictions. Actually, mine's probably not R1 anyway.
Right, that's what I was looking for, but it's basically the side, it said for distances, it says it's the same as R1.
Oh, okay.
I just don't.
Makes any sense.
Yeah,
Two.
so that's why I think they took it out.
Yeah, they must have been different at one point, and then at some point it got changed to the same. And then the other, obviously, all of the properties weren't
Yeah,
changed at that point because there was no need to.
and that's one thing, getting rid of one district, it saves us a lot. So,
When we go through this zoning, just kind of look at each of these pieces, are we going to be comparing to other counties so we can see what they're doing and what maybe we should be changing, so to make ours?
I would think, like Iowa County, they've been doing it a long time.
This was a recent conversation in my administrators group, and I think we've shared, I know I have other zoning examples, because some of them have recently redone their zoning. So
Yeah.
I know I have a few that I've saved in my emails, just thinking, on a rainy day when we have nothing better to do, we'll just, look at our zoning. So I know I have some, but yeah, we can always reach out and solicit some so that we can kind of see what others are doing. I mean, everybody, as we all know, is very unique and does
Right.
things different ways,
Right.
but we can see what's out there.
Right, but if we're being more restrictive than surrounding counties, we want to potentially make some of our changes. This is
Right.
probably the time to be thinking about that.
I can pull and see what I have currently, and then we can always reach out and get more. And we want to look at, similarly sized.
Right.
Similarly situated too, because, we're different than, let's say, a bigger city, obviously,
Dane
with our
County,
landscape and things
But-
like that too, so.
And I think for the three of us, Jen and Katrina, it's just like, I have some history, but we're all new. And we want to make sure we're starting new people, we want to make sure we're doing it the same way and so we don't have some of this stuff that they're finding, things that don't make sense. And there were permits approved for things that we had one with, something about it was done not that long ago. Second house was put on a property or something.
It wasn't, it was just, back in like 2020 or 2021, they put a house back here and per the ordinance, that would have had to have been rezoned to residential at that time of that house, but that didn't happen. So now it's just a 3.48 parcel that is ag forestry with a house on it.
So, you know, we just we wanna do it, okay, from this point on, this is how we're gonna do it. And there's no, I mean, there's always gray areas, but we wanna say, and as they come in for building permits, sanitary permits, any kind of permit, that's when we'll address it.
Wonderful. I mean, and I appreciate it. I appreciate that you all are catching these things and that you're working together and that you're formulating a plan. This is how we make it right. This is how we, you know, pave a new way. So, and thank you for bringing it to all of our attention so that we can, you know, figure out how we want to make it right and how we want to move it forward. So, you know, now we can do it.
And so that's kind of, and I'm not gonna be here much longer, you know.
Don't say that.
What?
I want to retire soon.
The WCA offer some guidance on some of this or whatever.
Well, I talked to him, Kim, if they haven't.
Did you think this is a common issue for?
Zoning probably, I mean, they probably have,
Suggestions at least.
or model policies that they've assisted in writing, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, the administrator group is great as far as
Yeah.
hearing. I mean, they really are, and probably if Kathy reaches out to other zoning administrators and or Katrina, I mean,
Yeah.
that's one good thing. We all have our counterparts and they're great.
And they've all experienced the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's one thing, if you're ever having a really bad day, you just call another county, because everybody's going through the same thing in a different format, one way or another.
But I've reached out to Scott Godfrey from Iowa County. He's done this a long time, the zoning part of it. And I had Katrina we had another issue came up and I told her to reach out to Scott and talk to him about something in a trailer park or a mobile home park. But we're gonna sit down and go through the current one and the things that we know of that need to be tweaked. We want to tweak them now. And then a major tweak, without repealing the ordinance, just a major tweak of certain things. Looking at, I think is a good idea. It's confusing. When we read through it, there's things that are conflicting. One part says one thing, one part says another, and we're like, okay. She and Jen have been very good about finding things like that. Like, okay, how are we gonna do it, right?
Sometimes when you get a new set of eyes, that's what they find.
And they're very good.
Speaking of new sets of eyes, I would ask new board members to go through this, or it's long, there's a lot there, but, you know, ask your questions, you know, it's good excuse to, you know, dive in and get up to speed on this stuff, but you might see something we didn't notice. So look through it, and I don't know how quickly this will play out, but probably by next committee, we'll probably have something we're gonna talk about. So, you know, list your questions.
I think that's something we'll keep on the agenda, Derek, just
Keep working on it.
so if they see things, we can start tweaking a little bit.
As you decide on when you think it's time for the tweak, you know, give us heads up. And
Right, but I think if you see something, you know, you can let us know and we can, Katrina or I can, because we want to fix this to make it easier. And then get rid of some of the, we're going to talk to Mr. Wendell too about how we handle the current ones that we're finding and what the best way to
Address them.
okay, any more questions? All right, so what do we got for correspondence? Future agenda items.
I wonder if we could get a review of water quality in Richland County, some of the past testing that we've done, we tested for, what the problem areas are, kind of just where are we in terms of water quality in our county? It's a really important topic, and I think other counties around us have had major issues, and I guess I'm wondering where we are.
I'm not sure, I don't know if I put it in the committee folder, one of the committee folders for one of the meetings. It was, the test results we had, water test results. I have to look back.
Yeah, but just not that long ago, there was some well tests, random well tests had done. Have you familiar with that?
I have not, no.
Okay.
It's in the June folder. I've got it's this, the well, sample sites, the well testing results, water viewer, the link to the well water viewer, you can go and look up.
Okay.
But to your point, is there more we want to do?
Well, yeah, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
What's the plan for?
Right, exactly. So yeah, that could be put on our agenda. Sure.
Thanks.
But
It was only a random sample. It wasn't like fully comprehensive.
And I know Sauk County does extensive testing. So it's curious, you know.
It costs money.
Yeah, I think that's for the extension though.
Any other future agenda items?
Short term. Haven't seen what that back up.
Yeah, that's true. But that needs to be back on the ordinance also.
and the manure storage, I would like to have on there just to get your approval of what we got. I'm not changing anything, but
Well, we also had talked about getting somebody from the state to come out and talk to us about that agent program. So if that's something maybe we could have for the next meeting.
We could.
Person's name, but I
That's
think,
still a separate step from just getting the STR ordinance itself. But
Right.
you're saying for the next.
for the
step.
agent part, because we also had that on our agenda too, and just to be asking those questions, have them explain it better. Obviously, we got a lot of new board members. They're not familiar with any of that.
I know Matt brought in the person from Vernon County at that time.
Mhm.
We can
I
talk.
thought we talked about bringing in the actual person that's from the state to explain how the whole,
I had to figure out the connection. I mean, that, when by connection, I mean, I'll have to figure out who to contact at the state.
I was gonna say, do we know who to contact?
I don't, but the person Matt works with would know.
yeah, I was gonna say, I thought Matt had mentioned a name. So we could have that person just come out and just at least explain how all that agent part works, and if that's something we wanna try to get to sooner than later or not.
So I can look and find out find out from Matt who the person in Vernon County is to talk to, and then she'll know who to talk to at the state.
Anything else? Yes.
Now, Julie, when you're talking about this agent, you mean somebody to oversee the Airbnb? What do you?
Yeah.
No, it's more than that. It's they're
Add another-
they're like the inspectors for the state. So it'd be like restaurants, it'd be
There's a whole list
a
of.
whole list of things that they'd be expecting that the state does, and we'd be doing that for the state. We would take in money to do that.
It was probably, I mean, it would have been in the last, if you go back and look in some of your previous folders, there was there was documentation in there that kind of listed all of what she just said, all the different things they would oversee. It's areas that we're probably not doing well in at all right now, and this person would be taking care of that, all of those steps. But short-term rentals would be included in that. Because it's gonna be a lot of work once we get this all set up and trying to get people to be sure that they're licensed with the state and then get our licensing, whatever it is we require and all of that. And doing the inspections, and they do part of that.
There are things that in theory the state does now.
Right.
Are these things she's talking about are things that currently the state does. In other words, for an Airbnb does things, they get a state license. And this program, if we decide to take it on as a county, which some counties have done, we would be essentially an agent for the state, but that means a lot more work. The question is, does it justify for the amount of work here to add another county employee essentially? That's the question.
For the inspections and stuff. But right now, a lot of this, what's happened is most of the Airbnbs in Richland County do not have a state license. They don't know they need a state license, or they just ignore getting a state license. But they're all supposed to be licensed by the state.
But and also those other licensing too, we get a portion of that for being the agent because it saves obviously the state. They don't have to send people out to do it, or we actually have a person here that's doing all of those things for that. So we get a portion of that. So we have to figure that out. How is that going to be, and how many licenses and inspections and all of that is it going to be, that how much money are we going to be receiving? So that's just good information, I think, to get from the state directly so they can explain how this whole program works. Doesn't have to be next month, not necessarily, but we should have it on the agenda sometime. So
Okay. Anything else?
Look down at the Airbnbs that we have in our community. They're on their own pretty much, they're just,
well, they have to be state licensed and they have to do everything through the state. So they have to get inspected with the state. They have to send somebody out. So they're at the mercy of the time of the individuals with the state. And that's the other reason with having an agent here is we could do it probably more timely as well and get a lot of these inspections and things done much quicker.
so, okay. Then the ordinance thing came in, so I'll just have to.
Yeah, is it-
Yep, that's not obviously finalized, so for the county itself, we don't have a license or anything yet, but the state of course does, so they have to be complying with that, but like she said, most of them either are unaware of it or just are waiting until somebody comes and knocks on their door and says, you gotta have your license, that kind of thing. So, I'm guessing most of them are probably unaware of it.
Yes, we're ready for.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second by Marty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.